Greetings, scholars. David the Mind Mechanic here. Something I was pondering again. I just can't remember if I've done this in a video, but I may have talked about this. But here's a question, like, how much in control of ourselves are we? And it might seem like a dumb question to some, either in the direction of, well, of course we're in control of ourselves. Or it might be a dumb question to people that think, well, I don't know. Like, I've got this terrible anxiety and thought disorder, and I don't seem to have any control over it. And, part of the issue here is, like, both people's perspective could be correct to a certain degree. What do I mean by that? And before I say the rest of this thought, I just want to preface this with, we do have control over ourselves, however, it's up to a point. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you some examples. I'll give you an example of something that just happened to me this morning. We have some animals out at the farmstead, and I went out to feed the chickens, and we have one turkey. Well, we had one turkey. Unfortunately, I went out and her head was missing. And unfortunately, that's life. It was probably an owl. However, I kind of liked that bird, even though she was a little weird and annoying, but I kind of liked the bird. We weren't going to eat her. We had no intentions of eating her. She was just a pet. And what happened? Something pops her head off. Now, if you're an animal person, and I'm an animal person, I wasn't real happy about this. In fact, I was a little misty-eyed. And, you think, well, what's that have to do with anything in control of yourself? Well, look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, an attachment to an animal. Like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with feeling sad about the animal being dead. There's nothing at all wrong with that. That's not the commentary here. The commentary here is, like, nobody wants to have the icky sad feeling, even though it's normal. But I'm just here to tell you that base response, right? So the initial response that I had to the stimulus of seeing the animal dead. Well, I'm just here to tell you, I don't know how much control that I have over that, and here's why. My genetics plus my life experience plus X stimulus. The X stimulus is going to be me seeing my decapitated turkey. That's going to give you whatever resulting behavior that I'm going to have in that moment. What was that resulting behavior? I started getting misty-eyed. I was feeling sad and sort of depressed a little, and I'm still kind of sad about it. Honestly, it's like a low intensity version of the stages of grief. Laugh all you want, but I kind of like that bird. But here's the thing. I don't know how much control I had over my, my condition, my current, my condition right when that happened to me, my condition now. Well, part of it now I have a little more control over, but when it first happened, I'm just telling you, don't have control over that. Now, some people will argue this. Some people argue this up one side and down the other. And I've said this in many videos before, the brain is not a good container. The brain is a conduit. A stimulus, either internal or external, a stimulus. What are we doing here, people? Everyone's just driving really slow all of a sudden. A stimulus occurs in the environment. It goes through one of my many senses. That was the dumbest thing ever. Anyway, drivers. So stimulus in the environment, it does something to me, and that stimulus gets translated through all the little organs and microtubules and all these fun things, and eventually it's translated into electrical impulses. And here's the deal with electrical impulses of any type. It's physics, folks. It either has to be changed into something different, it either has to be stored, it either has to be redirected, or it's going to go path of least resistance. And I don't think I'm leaving anything out there. So once that impulse starts, there's, again, this initial cascade. So anybody who says, my initial response was, well, look, I don't know how much control you had over that. Just to be perfectly honest with you. So there's a part of this experience that we have where, where we just don't have control. I'll give you another example because it just happened, and I rarely do any editing of my videos, like these videos anymore, because, I just want everything to be raw. But what did you just see? Did you see a split-second frame of the word pickles? And you had a thought and emotional response to that. And what was it? And here's what's funny. There was no warning for that. There was no warning for it at all. And what did it do to you? Now, it didn't do anything, hopefully anything terrible. I doubt it. I'm trying to do things that are, that are innocuous and benign and aren't going to hurt you. Seeing the word pickles, hopefully, is, not going to trigger anybody. If it did, let me know. I apologize. I'll talk you out of wherever you're at, if you're still stuck there. But a stimulus in the environment, the impulse got in. There wasn't anything you could do about it. If the brain registered the thing at all, on any level, even if you weren't sure if you saw it, something happened there. And that base response, we don't have really any control over. And there I just did it again. I know, Harry Potter reference, but I like bacon. So, but look, here's my point. It goes back to that question of, because people ask me this every week, what do I actually have control over? And can I control myself? Can I control what's going on in my head? The answer is yes, and the answer is no. After all the discussion here, right? The answer is yes and no. And why is it yes and no if it's not clear already? Well, the reason it's yes or no, and no is that there's that base response. That's the no. The base response, I'm just telling you simply don't have control over that. And it sucks because there's some areas where we'd really like to have a lot of more control. We'd really like to have a lot more control over that base response, right? In some areas, like I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I got a lot of leftovers from being an EMS worker, being an EMT on the ambulance, and doing little contract jobs in places, and I actually haven't been really seriously triggered. I haven't been seriously triggered with that, gosh, honestly, since I think before I was married. Now I have the leftovers. I have the irritability leftovers, and being short, and in terms of my mood. I've got a lot of the little things, but I'm talking full on, flashback, panic attack. I hadn't had that in a long time, but it happened a few months ago. And I'm just here to tell you, there wasn't much I could do about it other than maybe, don't do what I did to trigger myself. But I didn't, I hadn't been triggered in so long, I didn't necessarily think that it was going to happen. I think I was hoping that I was past all that, but, well, there you go. Because the thing that triggered me I had been exposed to before, and I wasn't triggered before, so I didn't really think it was going to happen. But there I was, having a full-on panic attack. That was fantastic. Stupid. But, you know, I'll tell you this, though. Like, the thing that's kind of almost more important is that I actually recognized that I was having it. Like, I knew exactly what it was. There was no mystery. And that kind of takes some of the bite off of it for people. Usually, like, you can, like, that's an anchoring point, right? Like, you can actually hold on to something concrete because you actually know what it is. A lot of times with folks, and I've been in the position myself in the past, a lot of times when we don't know what it is that's going on, that just freaks you out more. Because if you've ever had a panic attack, usually the first time it happens, you think you're dying, right? Like, you just straight up think, oh my gosh, my heart's going to explode, I'm going to stroke out, and it's not fun. Not fun. Since I knew what it was, it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go sit down for a bit. I'm going to try and do my best relaxation stuff. I'm going to try and mitigate it as best I can until my body calms down. It's about all you can do. You know, so I think the end here is, it's not that you have no control, but as anybody who's watched my videos knows, I'm a realist, and you know, we have to know what we're dealing with. We have to understand the nature of what we're dealing with ourselves, and when we have issues and we're trying to work through them. And again, the reality is there is a small percentage, I don't know what number it would be, but there's a small percentage of our thoughts and our emotions and behaviors and all that are, you know, a small part that we just don't have a lot of control over. That initial base response. Until I see evidence otherwise, as far as I can see, we don't have a lot of control over that. So, but that doesn't mean we have zero control. You know, I've said before that in the absence of the original stimulus, after about 15 minutes, and there's some brain science to back this up, after about 15 minutes, a lot of times the mechanisms that got initially triggered, like the brain areas that got triggered, they turn off. We can see this on some active brain scans. So like those usually turn off. And then if we're still experiencing the thing, this is not every case, okay? I just want to be real clear. But in a lot of cases, and sometimes we self-stimulate and re-trigger ourselves. But in a lot of cases, we're doing it to ourselves. And again, there are definitely some exceptions to this rule, so don't send me any hate mail. I know that there are exceptions, and I could make the list. I just don't want to. It'd be a long video. So, again, just something to think about. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was helpful, useful. Hope it, I don't know. If anything, I hope it validates you in that, you know, it's not that you're necessarily crazy. And that, again, I do get it, that, you know, this mental health stuff and working through issues is hard. It's difficult. But it's worth putting out the effort to try. And it's also a good reminder that, you know, if you can't seem to make it on your own with your support system, if you have any availability, go find a therapist, a psychotherapist. Go find that person. Go to your, you know, whether you have insurance or, you know, you have to go to a community mental health agency. Go find somebody, you know, a professional that is trained in this stuff and that can hopefully be a guide for you and a support to you to help you get through stuff. So, again, hope this was helpful, useful, and you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.